It's time to give Taiwan the U.S. Marine Corps' old Harrier jump jets. The United States Marine Corps has trained the last Harrier pilot ever. The end of the AV-8B Harrier II has long been in the works. The F-35B, with its unique short and vertical takeoff and landing or VTOL capability, is already becoming the top dog in Marine Corps aviation, which means that now is the time to send our old Harriers to Taiwan while the US still has the skills to help train up a foreign air force in using them to their full potential. Now, combat aircraft with VTOL, they've been around for decades. The British came up with the Harrier idea and it worked really well with small carriers. The US Marines, who tend to operate off amphibious ships, took note of this and also wanted an aircraft with the ability to be positioned close to troops in rough terrain in areas with minimal airfields. There have been many versions of the Harrier, but the central thesis remains the same for each. It's an attack aircraft that can perform short takeoff and landing and do many missions, including air-to-air engagements. The Harrier has had its share of ups and downs. The Falklands conflict showed that the British Harriers could perform admirably against a tenacious Argentine air assault. They also worked as close air support for British troops during the retaking of the Falkland Islands. But during the first Gulf War, the Harrier showed a higher vulnerability to surface-to-air heat-seeking missiles due to its unique propulsion design. It's also notoriously difficult to fly, and this has made it historically accident-prone compared to conventional combat jets. Despite this, the Harrier was quite crucial during the first Gulf War, and the AV-8B was continually upgraded, and in Iraq and Afghanistan, the Harrier II provided close air support for decades. And even today, AV-8B squadrons are operating in the Red Sea shooting down Houthi drones. The last Marine Corps Harrier II rolled off the production line in 2003, which means of course that these are not young aircraft to say the least. It's possible transferring them to Taiwan would lead to a situation where keeping them in the air would be difficult, but Taiwan has shown the ability to field older aircraft for long periods of time. Some of that's because either they couldn't or wouldn't buy newer combat aircraft. But either way, it makes me suspect that in a pinch they could get combat sorties out of these old Harriers. Now, Taiwan's in the midst of an F-16 purchase, which is great. The F-16V is a fine aircraft and capable of many impressive things. But the Harrier's ability to perform short takeoffs could be the difference between having a combat air patrol intercepting Chinese fighters, bombers, and missiles versus hoping that Taiwan's Air Force can hold out while the maintenance crews frantically try to fix the runways. I recognize that the US is not the sort to just give things away, and attaching a dollar number to the whole affair could actually make this a far more palatable option to US lawmakers. Perhaps Taipei needs to offer a small pittance for these old Harriers and all their parts. Maybe even they can be tied into one of the many pending weapon deliveries that Taiwan is expecting. Speaking of that, most of these deliveries are behind schedule, at least in part due to demand in Ukraine and other places for certain high-end weaponry. Giving Taiwan something today that they can integrate into their defensive plan is better than forcing the Taiwanese military to keep waiting for these so-called silver bullet weapons that won't arrive in great numbers or quickly enough to change the calculus against Chinese aggression. Harriers would be able to intercept some drones and missiles, provide close air support, prevent PLAAF air superiority, and give the Republic of China a viable way to produce sorties after PLA strikes on Taiwanese airfields. This isn't a perfect plan by any means to beef up Taiwan's military capabilities, but we're entering a time for creative solutions to potentially head off a miscalculation by the People's Republic of China that could draw the US into a bloody war.